Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. Well today, something really cool. Many of you will recall at the start of this year that we got the new Monty's Caravan from ICM. So based on the Leyland Retriever vehicle, but it had this incredibly detailed caravan. And the actual caravan part of it, I think, was actually stolen from the Italians. Some Italian general had it, and the Brits, when they overran them, I think in North Africa, they actually took it and had it refurbished slightly. But it was basically very sound, and he had all these famous pictures of the German generals in it, which was absolutely amazing. Anyway, what they've done now, of course, is they've come out with this new kit, 35604, and on this one, they've actually put the Monty figures in together with the Caravan as well. So you've now got, and I think I'm correct in saying, if we have a closer look at this, if I can just zoom them in the full way, I think you've actually got, on the left, General Brian Horrocks, Monty, of course, and is it Rupert Brooke? I think I was mixing up with the poem writer, but Brooke, I think it's Brooke, Monty, and Horrocks you've got there, and you've also got the figure on the other side. You've got Monty's adjutant, who's also acts as like his dispatcher and radio operator, etc. Now, of course, those of you with longer memories that are of a certain age, shall we say, like me, will remember an earlier iteration of this, which I did a review on a couple of years ago now. Easy, maybe longer. And of course it was the Matchbox Monty's Caravan. Here it is. And of course lots of you remember my review on YouTube, where I did a good old look at this. And you got the same basic scene. Now that one came with in 76 scale. That one came with a little scout car, which is kind of superfluous, really. Yeah, there it is on the side, the scout. But the main event, so to speak, is Monty's Caravan, and it was depicted in a street scene with a typical Matchbox diorama, of course, whereby there was a sort of smashed up street, and it had like some sort of a war memorial. Fast forward slightly, like a memorial that was broken, like an angel, and you had the option of doing the caravan in the desert colours or the green European Theatre of Operations ETO scheme. So brilliant now that we've wound forward 50 years almost, and we now have this fantastic version coming in as Matchbox again. Just thought we won't go into that, but you'll remember it so well. Anyway, so winding back to the present day then, so we've got the beautiful example that's just come in from ICM. Now, in fairness, I probably won't go into this in too much detail because we have seen it in its two elements already, of course. So we've seen the Caravan, which went into great detail. I'll put you a link over there. I'll also put you a link over there for the figures that Monty and Brooke and General Horrocks. And the radio operator, in fairness, it's all three of them. So, we'll have a quick look at it though, because I just think as a package, this is, for lots of you that, certainly for me, I've got that Matchbox kit today, of course, but I don't want to build that because it's so collectible. But this, that's a different matter. I can see me building this, I really can. Let's have a look at it. I think it deserves a little bit of a peep. Thank you to ICM for very kindly sending this through. Thank you to them for cleverly weaving them together, of course, the two kits they've done previously. I have to confess that when I saw it the first time, it left you in no doubt that they were going to do this one. This was coming for sure, as sure as Christmas. But luckily, well before Christmas, so it feels very, very heavy. There is no sound there. Airfix, please take note. Look at that. Nothing. You can't hear any plastic rattling at all. All you can hear there is a bit of rubbing between the plastic and the cardboard. Figure set. And then we've got one big bag where they put them all in together, which I prefer they didn't do, but again, there's no play in it, so there's no damage danger at all. There's a bit of photo etch. They've nailed it with this kit. Now, when I had the original one, it was auctioned off. I think David Mummery, my friend David Mummery, I think got it. I think he won the auction for that. Pretty sure he did. It's an absolutely fantastic kit, one of the best ones ICM produced yet. So, as I say, we have seen it before. What all we're really talking about here is the amalgamation of the obvious two things. I'll show you these figures though, because again, because we have, as I say, seen them once before. So you've got the adjutant and radio operator here. Monty's number 2. He gets things done, passes orders back and forth. Monty himself, Field Marshal Bernard, Sir Bernard Lovell Montgomery. And then you've got Major Horrocks, and if you remember, I think it's Horrocks. I've got it the right way around, haven't I? Horrocks was played by Edward Fox, of course, in The Bridge Too Far, you'll remember. And then you got Brook, I think it's Brook. So these are the senior. It doesn't tell you who they are, which again would be. I prefer it if ICM did that. You know, they're just men, aren't they? If you don't know anything about these, you know, haven't studied history, who are they? We really do need to know who they are when you've gone to such effort as they have here. I mean, it doesn't even say this is Monty, which is kind of strange. There's a map here. There's like a map board, and there's a decal, I think, that you're going to put the map on. So that will probably pop out any second, I suspect. Let's just open this out. Oops. Just quickly zoom you back. I'm sure that's going to pop out somewhere. What's this? I think that's got some decal, hasn't it? We have this thing where they did the carpet, like a rug, and the bathroom floor, all pre-coloured. And you just cut them out, in fact. That's the idea. We don't put any decals in here. Oh, yes, we have. There they are, they're hiding. Yes, here we go. Oh, this is amazing. Right, here we go again. Now, we were trying to remember, and my memory's failed me again. And somebody listed all the generals and he was bob on. I got 3 of them, I think, but I couldn't remember everybody. You've got Rommel. I think it's von Rundstedt, Kluger, Model, Guderian, and then this is the one that's on the eastern front. The one I couldn't remember. Let's get closer. So those of you that are proper experts on these German generals can tell me. So obviously we've got Rommel here, which is dead obvious. And this is, I think it's the 2 at the ends, the ones that I didn't know. Anyway, I'm not going to dwell on that, showing my lack of knowledge. But you can look them up. I'm sure that several of you will comment below and tell me again. But beautifully done, these photographs, and he had them on the wall all around his main opponent, and he had to try and think like them. What would they do? Which was a strength of Montgomery. He had some flaws, old Monty did. I've talked about this quite a lot in the past. Monty's problem was that he came across as very arrogant. But then Patton was the same, really, but Patton was very gung-ho. Montgomery wasn't so gung-ho, not because he didn't have courage, but he'd seen whereas the Americans hadn't to the same degree, seen the effect of throwing your men in too boldly into situations like we had in the First World War, where they then get slaughtered. And this did affect the Brits, especially Montgomery's thinking. He always wanted to make sure that he was assured of victory before going into battle. Patton was a bit more, you could say, gung-ho. You could say he liked to get the enemy off balance and shock them by attacking them as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, and perhaps in the most unlikely ways possible, so that they would fall back. Of course, the Germans were masters of counterattack, and they proved this again and again in World War II, especially in Normandy and places like that. And Montgomery knew this. He'd had a lot more experience, in all fairness, compared to the Americans, and this is what made him a bit reluctant. The overall problem with Montgomery was, instead of saying that, Eisenhower would probably have seen him as weak. I mean, they knew that Patton was too far the other way, and something in between these two characters would have been the perfect general. Probably like Rommel, really, but anyway, I'm not saying Rommel was perfect, but he was probably somewhere in between those two attitudes of boldness, caution. You need to have both. But Montgomery would often then, when things changed, or was it Operation Goodwood, it didn't go quite as planned, and he would then revise to the press what his expectations. Of course, I always knew that we would blah blah blah. It was like, no, don't start doing that backtracking. You said, they said they wanted to be in Caen on the first day of D-Day. I don't think that was ever realistic. I don't know why they thought that. To get to the city on day one, I just don't see it. I don't think that anybody was surprised that wasn't achieved, but then it did take a couple of months. So, well, not a couple of months, but certainly, 10 weeks? 10 weeks to get to Caen? Was it 9 weeks? Can't remember. It was basically a couple of months. It was never going to be quick, What they needed to do with Caen was then circle it really and just cut it off and just bypass it. The Germans would have surrendered because they'd have just been starved out. But the trouble is, so is your civilian population. Anyway, I'm going off at tangents now. Sorry, I've gone off on a history lesson there. Anyway, so Monty was, but Monty was a good, I believe Monty was a good general. He was just this arrogance and this inability to say, well, realistically, we couldn't have expected to do that. And he would never do that. He'd say, no, I had that. That was my intention all along. And you're thinking, no, it wasn't. Come on. And that's what undermined him. Especially in the eyes of people like Eisenhower, I think. And Bradley wasn't too happy with him at times as well. And the American journalists, this constant revising of what he'd previously said. Whereas Patton would go in all guns blazing and either just totally take control and throw the Germans out, or suffer some horrible counter-attack, and that's bound to be the way it would go, one or the other really. Monty was I don't think he was overly cautious, he was just not entirely honest with what his expectations were. He would make these bold Patton-like claims at the beginning and then rein back on them, and that was the problem. Anyway, so let's have a look at this. We've got the figures there, even though it doesn't tell us who they are. I think in a way I'm a bit reluctant to just go through this all over again, because we have, I'll put the links over here. You can see the full reviews. I think we'll have a look at the men. I don't think we'll go through the vehicles. We have seen it in great detail. All that beautiful. What I will show you just quickly is this business about how they created the sort of main room and how they put all these, where is it? It shows you where they put these decals for all the pictures of the German generals, which is mighty impressive. He puts them all around the room, basically on the wall, Yeah, so there are several, again it's not made overly clear if I'm honest, but yeah, there are several decals you put in here on the walls, and you can see them. You can see the places like this, where my thumb is, where you've got a picture there and a picture there and a picture. There's 3 pictures of German generals who are the adversaries of Montgomery. Didn't have any fan pictures of Patton, I noticed. They did not get on, did they? Yeah. Montgomery regarded Patton as a gung-ho cowboy lunatic. Patton regarded Monty as a coward. Well, perhaps that's a bit strong, but he didn't like Montgomery. He thought he was a bit of a weasel. And he didn't think he was bold enough. I think you've got to remember that the Americans had never been in a conflict that long before. Before they got into Normandy, and obviously they had the same in the Pacific, so things changed very quickly. They learned perhaps a bit more caution when they needed it, but that's just the nature of the history of the two nations' armed forces and what they've been through. Really, I think it's quite understandable, to be honest, from both points of view. Right, so I'm not going to go into that in great detail because I think we've seen it in such detail already, and I will put you the. Oh, it's having a bit of trouble here. I will put you the. Is that doing that? My instructions for the figures have been a little bit awkward. Slightly oversized, that's why. For the box. But let's have a look at these men, because I think this is the thing that really distinguishes this, and will give us a little bit of depth and remind you of the Matchbox set. That's a lot. Here we are. So we've got the adjutant, and we've got Monty. Monty! Let's go with Monty first. This is where my camera will lock onto his face and recognise his face. This is Monty here. Here he comes. Out of the way. There we go. Field Marshal Montgomery. Hello. Hello. He talked a bit like that, didn't he? Hello. Well, of course I expected the Germans to counterattack. Yes. We never expected to capture Caen on day one. Really? Are you sure about that? That's not what you told Ike, is it? But he was actually a good strategist, Monty. And this business about trying to send in the forces. If you see what happened at the Falaise Gap, he did get criticised for that, didn't he? Zoom back for a bit more history. He did get badly criticised afterwards for that because of his caution again. The Germans were on the run as the front collapsed. 20th of August, this was 20th of August 1944, as they were approaching Chambois and Falaise. And the Germans panicked, and they were being mercilessly artilleried and attacked by the fighter bombers, the Typhoons and the American Thunderbolts, ad infinitum, and they had to dash through this gap, and they came up against the Poles on the heights of Kudahar, a place called the Mace, as it's known, where they had this hill and they had this commanding position, and the Poles just rained artillery down on the Germans. And around the back of this hill was where the Germans tried to flee up this lane and got massacred. Absolutely horrendous. There's some horrible photographs of all these dead horses and dead men's bodies lying everywhere and decapitated. Ugh, absolutely terrible. Terrible scenes, you know. Burnt vehicles everywhere. Just a massacre, literally a massacre. Because the Polish Shermans came in from the top of this lane and shot at them, and they were being attacked by the other Poles with their artillery, and the dive bombers were coming in with rocket firing Typhoons and the Thunderbolts with their cannon and bombs. So it was just a shooting gallery, you know. And there's this famous Moissy, the little ford at Moissy, which is this little tiny river crossing, which was this ultimate bottleneck. Tiny location, you know, just a little ford with next to a water mill with a water wheel. It was an absolute scene of utter devastation and carnage. Yeah, the place was just littered with bodies, and the fields. Then they burst out into a big field, and that was just like a shooting gallery for the aircraft. I mean, they mercilessly strafed and bombed every vehicle and every sign of any personnel. You know, some horrendous scenes. So, if you've never been to Falaise, those are the places you should go and look and read up about it, because it was merciless. But getting back to Montgomery, because I've gone off at a tangent. But he was criticised for not closing the gap and sealing off the Germans. Now he had the Canadians just to the west of where the Poles were. You had the Americans coming up from the south, and they should have all really met. And he sort of made them, instead of driving straight south to meet the Americans, he made them move off west, which did create the shooting gallery effect. But it didn't actually stop them, and the Germans were getting through at night. That's what they were doing. They were diving for cover and hiding in the daytime, and then as soon as it went dark, they were then going through in small groups, many small groups, trying to get out of this hell that was the Falaise Pocket, or the Cauldron, I think they called it. Very nasty though, and a lot of them didn't get out, you know, but I think something like 20,000 escaped, and Monty got the blame for that, for not closing the gap off aggressively enough. Now, had he closed it off aggressively, it would have been an absolute bloodbath, and a lot of the Brits and Canadians and Poles would have been killed for sure. However, the argument goes that those that escaped, of course, lived to fight another day in places like the Ardennes, the Battle of the Bulge, and also some of them escaped to fight at Arnhem. So it's like jam tomorrow, isn't it? You're thinking that you don't want to overcommit yourself and have an absolute slaughter and risk your guys, which is what Montgomery was doing. But he did create problems for himself later down the road, you know, for sure. Anyway, that's a quick history lesson for you. I must say, I've been to Normandy, seen most of the sites, but I've never been to the Falaise Pocket. And it's somewhere I'd like to go. It's on my bucket list to go and visit, because it was such an epic battle there. some of the most horrendous scenes of World War II played out there. So there is Field Marshal Montgomery, and you see his head there with his beret on. Whoops. Trying to get focus. Focus isn't happy. There we go. So there's Monty, and yeah, there he is with his. You see, he's got his tie, his uniform. Got his legs here, standing. They're having a bit of an orders group meeting. Here's the map board that you put the map on. And then over here we've got his number 2, his adjutant, the messaging man, you might say. I think he's is he corporal? Can't quite make that out. Let's just check that. Is that a giveaway here? A closer look at that. I think he's a corporal. And then you've got this is I think it's Brook. This one. He's got his hand. Whoops, got his hand bent. Brook, who's holding the map. And this is the adjutant I mentioned. That's got his headphones, and he's got his notepad with his orders on it and latest messages for Monty. Where's the rest of it? Where's the rest? Where's his other arm gone? He's got a bent arm, hasn't he? Hard to tell. The way that they've laid them out is a little bit odd. Oh, it's here. Okay, I've got it. It's here. That's his other arm. Yeah. Okay, he's walking along, coming to give them the latest news from the front. And then over here we've got, I think that's Horrocks, this one. General Horrocks, I think. And that must be General Brook. There you go. There you go. So all you got to do is, if you're good at figures, you just watch something like A Bridge Too Far. I think it's unfortunate in that film that you never see Montgomery. But then again, he sort of did take a slight back seat. I think he knew it was a bit risky, and he wanted Browning to take the rap, didn't he? Roy the Boy Browning, played by Dirk Bogarde in the film. But yeah, I think he wanted to keep a discreet distance so that when it went wrong, he could blame Browning for not getting the plan right, which is partly true actually, because Browning drew up a lot of the details. I'm not trying to blame him exclusively. Montgomery, he can't escape responsibility for it. But this is what goes on. It's politics, isn't it? It's like any army when there's huge decisions are being made that will have great impact. Very risky decisions, of course. Here's your torsos. Some lovely figures there. Lovely figures. So if you're good at figure painting, you're going to have an absolute ball with this. And you've got your Monty's Caravan, and you can have that scene replicating the Matchbox one all over again. Just needs the streets. You just need one of those street dioramas you can sometimes buy them, can't you? One of these diorama companies, like, I don't know if Coastal Kits do one of those for that particular scenario. They tend to be aircraft or racing car tracks, don't they? Race tracks. Well, there we have it. So that is an absolutely brilliant set that enables you to replicate your Matchbox one. I'm just thinking that Neil at Creative Time Wasting, if you're watching, he probably is. I think that's right up your street, dude. Yeah, because he did the Matchbox one. May God forgive him. How could he do such a thing? And it was an original Matchbox kit, an original box as well. I was very upset with him when he did that. I think that would be ideal for him. And I'll tell you now, that's a 10 out of 10. I don't need to go into all the detail and go through every piece again. But as I say, over here I'll put Monty's Caravan, and over here I'll put the generals and the adjutant. You can see them on the side here. I forgot to show you that. What did it say, by the way? Oh, I didn't read that either. It says figures. I'm doing everything backwards. Figures of Field Marshal Montgomery and his staff and his mobile office were based on a Leyland Retriever truck chassis. Detailed reproduction of British World War II uniforms. Highly detailed interior in Montgomery's mobile office, including his desk, sofa, shelves, cabinets and more, including German photos of the German generals. Includes decals featuring portraits of the German commanders as seen on the walls of Montgomery's office. This set allows a realistic diorama of Montgomery's headquarters operations during the final stages of World War II. It's got 436 parts, and not one of them's rattling. 436 and another 31 parts for the figures. What I forgot to tell you, because I didn't read it out, and I'm going to do it now. Doing this in a bit haphazard back to front way, aren't I? Well, let me just read out to you when it says about the retriever, because there's something I want to include. It tells you the history. It says, while General Montgomery was commanding the 8th British Army in North Africa, he was provided with a specially designed staff vehicle. The original vehicle was created and based on the standard British Army vehicle, the Leyland Retriever, but the non-standard structure was installed on the base chassis, which served as a mobile field office. The interior of the vehicle divided into 2 rooms. The small front room was equipped with a bathroom, while the larger room contained wardrobes for personal belongings and clothes, a writing desk with desk lamps and a large sofa. Previously, this office belonged to Italian General Bergonzoli and was mounted on a Lancia 3RO truck. So they stole it. After the vehicle was captured by a unit of the 7th British Armoured, the structure was transferred to the chassis of the Leyland Retriever. After the end of the combat operations in North Africa, the mobile office was moved to Europe and repainted. Montgomery also had 2 specialised trucks like this. One was converted into a mobile bedroom, while the other one was used for large staff maps and meetings. So this is the meetings one. All 3 vehicles became known as Monty's Caravan. These vehicles were used by the General from 1944. He also became Field Marshal Montgomery until the end of the war, and they're currently on display at the Imperial War Museum in Duxford. So obviously our friends from ICM have been to Duxford to do some scanning of it, you know. I've actually stood in this vehicle. I don't know if I told you before, but I actually got stuck. Funny story. I got stuck in the Land Warfare Museum, which they're now demolishing. It's being removed, actually. I think they're moving it to Hendon. The vehicle, I mean. But they're demolishing this Land Warfare Museum. But I went in there about 2018, late one afternoon. I'd been working in the area, finished, and I had about an hour spare, so I popped in there for an hour and went to the Land Warfare and looking at the Monty's Caravan. And it was in November, I think it was, and it was like dark nights, and it had gone dark at 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I was the only person there, and suddenly all the lights went out and they locked the door and I got locked in. Got literally locked in. This is about half an hour before closing. They'd obviously decided that was it. They were shutting up early. Didn't check there was nobody in there. There's me in Monty's Caravan, and I get stuck. It was like Home Alone with Monty. Do you know what I mean? It was like the ghosts of World War II. Oh. And any of you that know this, I know that David Mummery and others have been there. A lot of you when I've been in this building. And they had a very nice Jag Panther and all sorts of things. But I tell you what, it wasn't overly warm, not in November. I didn't want to be stuck in there all night. So I had to get my mobile phone out and I had to ring them. To ring the main office and say, your security staff have just locked me in and not even checked that I was in here. Minded my own business in the museum, half an hour before closing, shut in. Yeah, imprisoned in Monty's Caravan. There you go, there's a true story. That was about, I don't know, it was about, did I say November or was it sort of February? It might have been February. I think it was February. It was very dark nights anyway, it went dark early still. Anyway, thank you to ICM. I'm going off many tangents there. I give you a bit of a history lesson that is not relevant. But anyway, Monty's Caravan, 10 out of 10. And absolutely deserves that score, no question. The figures are wonderful. Yeah, because I never did show you that one on the side. Beautiful figures, absolutely superb vehicle. I know that David Mummery hasn't built his yet, so I don't know if any of the rest of you have built them. But it's an absolute corking product, this is from ICM. Let's just go in and look at the figures. There we go, there they are. So yeah, you've got, as I see it, left to right, you've got General Brian Horrocks, Field Marshal Montgomery, General Brook, and then you've got your adjutant there. And then here's your Leyland Retriever based Caravan. stolen from the Italians. What more can you want? A really nice product this though. It's probably ICM's, I wouldn't say it's their best kit of the year, but it's got to be in the top 3 easy. No problem at all. That said, news. Because the Handley Page Hampden is imminent. The next kit that I review from ICM will be the Hampden, I believe. So watch out. Watch this space. It's coming very, very soon. From the date you watch this, it's probably going to be with you 2 to 3 weeks later. I think you're going to see it that soon. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you to ICM. Hope you give me all the viewers will give me a thumbs up, give me a like. I appreciate ICM sending that. That's a really nice product, and they deserve to sell lots of these. Beautifully packaged, beautiful artwork. Everything is absolutely nailed in that kit. And I just love the some of the touches like the German generals and all that stuff. Fantastic. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video and the review. I say I'll put the actual detailed review of the retriever over here, and of the you just saw the review basically of the men, but I'll do the other one as well. And until next time, thanks very much for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Get ready for the big one coming from ICM very soon. And until then, thanks a lot. Take care of yourselves. And bye for now.